Hey guys, we are going to make a raspberry clafoutis today. That is French for those of you who are not familiar, like me. Sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, but I'm doing my best. It is literally a tart with berries, and that's exactly what this is. So we had some raspberries that were going to go bad. We're headed out of town, so we wanted to make sure we used everything in our fridge. And so I was just looking up some fun desserts and this came up. So I started by washing the raspberries. This pack is larger than the recipe called for. So this is definitely like, these raspberries are packed in there, and the recipe only called for like a couple cups, but I wanted to use them up and I snacked on some of them as I was making them. But basically this kind of, to me, seems like a tart. Wait, no, not a tart. What is it called? A custard. Cause it's just like whipped eggs with like barely any sugar. It's like not a very sweet dessert. So it very much is like French in my mind, but, yeah, it ended up being really good. I know I am not being superficial by whipping this with a fork. I actually watched a video the other day that was saying that you should never whip up your eggs with a fork. Something about how, I don't know, something about it. You're not supposed to do it, but my whisk was dirty, so we do what we can. The recipe called for whole milk or heavy cream, and we only had almond milk, but I did have just a little bit of this plant-based heavy cream, less than a quarter cup. So I added some of that in there to thicken it up a little bit. I don't know that it affected it much, but if you are doing dairy-free, I would suggest getting that heavy cream or getting oat milk or something that's a little bit thicker, because almond milk is just basically water in my mind. But use what you have and roll with it, and I'm sure it'll still be delicious. So now I'm just going to melt a couple tablespoons of butter, throwing that in a cup really quick to melt that up, and then we're going to add in our dry ingredients, some gluten-free flour, really not much. This is it feels like all of the ingredients, it was very small measurements for all of them, which just feels very doable, and it was awesome because I had all the ingredients on hand. I'm just mixing up the butter a little bit to make sure it's melted throughout, and then I'm going to set that aside and add it at the very, very end, because it's hot butter, and I don't want to cook my eggs that I just put in it. So if you think of this beforehand and you melt your butter beforehand, you'll be better off, and you can just toss it in there. But it works either way. So I'm just making sure it's not too warm. Don't want any get cooked eggs before it even goes in the oven. And then that really was it. It is a super basic recipe, but it ended up being so delicious, and I just really liked it. I really like fruit-based desserts. So I don't know, it ended up being fantastic, and we ate it in a day. So I'm just making sure that it's completely combined, and then in that greased pie pan, I'm adding the filling, and then I'm just gonna tap all the berries to make sure they're covered. I don't know if that makes a huge difference. I just don't want any of them burning because they're sticking out of the mixture itself. And again, this is way more raspberries than it called for, but it worked really well. It's still cooked in the right amount of time.
Hey Google,
at 350 for about 35 minutes. And then I just, gave it a jiggle to make sure that it was cooked fairly well. I think I added it in for just a couple more minutes to make sure it solidified. And then there it was. And the recipe called for putting some powdered sugar on top, but we had some of this dairy-free Cool Whip that we wanted to use up, and it honestly was delicious, and we served it with some decaf lattes, and just, it was so good. Hope you guys enjoy.